Good day, students. So we are now in our last module for our second quarter, which is the formulating recommendations. So this is the last part in your research paper. Okay, so in this module, we will discuss this following competency. The learner formulates recommendations. So in our last meeting, we discussed about formulating conclusions. So now we will continue. We have now our recommendations. So what is recommendation? So recommendation is a familiar word we often hear. You might have already encountered many questions asking for your recommendations. For instance, simple questions like what brand of shoes would you recommend to a friend, or what route will suggest to easily reach a destination. Whatever recommendation is being asked, I am sure that you have at least considered some basis for giving your answers. The same goes with research recommendations. This part of the paper is not a mere product of one's creativity, nor ideas that pop up out of nowhere. So recommendations must demonstrate how results support them and should be traced directly from conclusions. Recommendations emerges from conclusions and are actually suggestions, okay, or suggest actions. Okay, example of this picture. So take a look at this picture. List down your observations on the space provided. So we have here a school. Look at the image of the school. So you write here your 3 observations. Okay, let's analyze your answers. So you like to study in a school. So why do you say so? So based on the pictures, I don't think that you will like to study in a school because a school is already, look at the structures, dilapidated, and it's full of trash. Okay, as you can see. And based on your observations, in what ways can the situation be improved? Okay, so you can have the school renovated. So you can repaint the structure of the school building, and the garbage, you apply the proper waste segregation. Okay, now let's go now to our topic. So what is recommendation? Recommendation can be defined as suggestions about the best course of action for a situation. For a research paper recommendation, recommendations must be on data and cannot be speculated. So in your study, so you must base your recommendation based also on your conclusions and findings. So it must jibe. Okay. So Amorado et al. 2017 discusses recommendations comes into 2 forms. So remember this: recommendations for change and recommendations for further study. Again, that is recommendations for change and recommendations for further study. Okay, so to make sure that you will be able to write a good and responsive recommendations, it is suggested that you go back to your conclusion. So make sure that the recommendations you will write are aligned with your conclusions as well as with the context of the study. So for recommendations for further study, it will be helpful to review the study limitations. So this will provide you the areas needed to be further explored. Okay, so you look at your results, okay, and your conclusion. That is the point where you will base your recommendations. So again, you need to recommend for change and for further study. Okay, so let's have example. Okay, example 1: with a global pandemic besetting humanity, this research was conducted to determine the level of awareness of secondary students of the coronavirus disease. So the following study, the study follows a scripted design that attempts to describe the level of awareness of the mentioned respondents of the said illness. So 50% 50 secondary students were conveniently sampled, and revealed a mean of 3.1, so 5 as perfect score, implying a moderate level of awareness among students. Okay, so let's analyze here the key ideas. So in the result, so we have here sa idea moderate level of awareness. And another, we have here 50% of respondents were convenient sampled. So in this first paragraph here, we have this is about recommendations for change. And then on this part here, this is recommendations for further study. Okay, so this is the recommendation. So this study suggests that education of secondary students on COVID-19 must be reinforced to increase their level of awareness. Okay, so recommendation for change. It's because, so it's, the idea here is the moderate level of awareness. Okay, so we need to improve it. Okay, so that's why we recommend for change. So the reason, it is best for students to be fully aware of the dangers of the disease. So actions has to be taken to increase their awareness. Okay, let's now go to recommendation for further study. So further research might include other students from different grade levels to verify results of the study. So this is your limitations of your study. Okay, as you stated in your chapter 2. Okay, so the reason, since the study is only limited to secondary students, it will be better to investigate other learner groups to check the results. Okay, so that is how you will make your recommendations. Okay, let's have another example. Okay, so the new normal temporarily paused the traditional face-to-face classes we all knew. To continue education, several learning modalities were implemented to as much as possible accommodate all students. Correspondingly, the study was initiated to compare students' performance under the different learning modalities. For simplification, only the print, modular, and online synchronous were investigated, so being the most commonly prepared mode by the students. Hence, exam scores of students under the mentioned modalities were compared. So results revealed that there is significant difference in performance of the two groups and that the print modular group performed better than students under online synchronous classes. Okay, let's have the key ideas. So we have here the print modular group is performed better than online synchronous classes. And another idea is, so only the print and modular synchronous modalities are being studied. Okay, so here's the recommendation for change. So these findings suggest schools to exert great efforts in providing printed modules. So the reason, the results clearly indicate the need to give more attention to printed modules since they yield to better exam performance. Okay. Next. So to develop a full picture of the study, additional studies may be conducted to compare the other learning modalities. Okay, the reason, there are other learning modalities that are not covered in the research. Okay, that is your recommendation for further study. Okay, because in this study, you only discuss the modular and online synchronous. Okay, okay, let's have another example. Example 3. So happiness has already been related to so many things: achievement, family, power, love, and wealth, among many others. In particular, the purpose of the study is to measure the relationship between the level of happiness and amount of money, specifically among young professionals ages 20 to 30. Results revealed an almost zero correlation, so R is 0.02, between the variables stated. This implies that an increase or decrease in one variable does not necessarily mean an increase or decrease in other, or vice versa. Okay, let's have the key ideas. So you have here the result of correlation, which is 0.02. Then other idea is, so the respondents of the study are just the professionals ages 20 to 30. Okay, so here's the recommendation for further study. Is finding support exploring other variables where happiness might be related. So you need to explore other variables because the result is almost zero correlation. Okay, then another. So further investigation of a specific group of professionals might be must be better to clarify the study. Okay, because you're only referring to this age limit. Okay, you can have below 20 or above 30. Okay, that is your recommendation for your study. Okay, here are the helpful phrases in writing your recommendations. So here are the recommendations for change. So these are the suggested phrases. This study suggested that you can have taken together this finding support recommendation 2, or you can have this finding suggest several courses of action for, and greater efforts are needed to, continued efforts may be needed to, then there could be a need for blank. Okay, those are the suggested phrases for change. Then for recommendations for further study, here are the suggested phrases. Further study with more focus on blank is suggested. To develop a full picture of blank, additional studies will be blank. In future investigation, it might be possible to use a different, and further research might explore, and so on. Okay? So I hope you already know how to make your recommendations for your study. Okay, so let's have this. Let's test ourselves. Let's do this. So we have here, this is our instruction. Write the appropriate recommendation based on the ideas listed. Here's this paragraph. So with increasing COVID-19 cases per day, several steps were taken to examine factors that might affect survival rate. One is this study, which is aimed to gauge how socioeconomic status might affect COVID-19 survival rate. Study is focused on socioeconomic status as the sole variable under consideration. So finding shows that socioeconomic status affects COVID-19 survival rate, implying that wealthy patients have greater chances of survival. Okay, so here we have already written the key ideas. So your task here is to write your recommendations. Okay, so for change and for further study. Okay, so let's have our answers. So here, what can we recommend? So economic status affects COVID-19 survival rates. So we can suggest here that can have the government should give more subsidy for the less fortunate people in terms of medical expenses. Okay, so that is our recommendation. Okay, recommendation for change. Okay, so we have that recommendation because of these findings that economic status affects the COVID-19 survival rate. Okay, so I hope you get the right recommendation. Okay, next. So this study focused on socioeconomic status as sole variable under consideration. So what can we recommend here for further study that we can use in survival rate as a variable? So you can have other variables can be considered that might affect COVID-19 survival rate. Okay, so because you're only declaring this one variable or factor, so you can have other variable. Okay, that is your recommendation for change. Okay, so I hope you get the correct answer. Then, so let's remember this. So recommendation has two forms. So it's recommendation for change and recommendation for further study. Then let's have this Okay, this your exercise. Okay, so you answer this on your own. So the idea is given. You only need to have your recommendation. Okay, you write it here and here, and here's the other. Number 2. Then just follow the rubric. Okay. So now, let's have it in your research study. Okay, so in your research study, okay, you have here your conclusions. Okay, so again, as I said earlier, so you will base your recommendation on the conclusions you have written. Okay, so again, the number of your conclusions, recommendations will also be based on your conclusions. So if you have 5 conclusions, you expect that you also have 5 recommendations. Okay, example we have here. So our conclusion, so problem solving abilities of students and its factor obtain a very high mean. Problem solving abilities of students help them to be critical thinkers and real life problem solvers. So our recommendation for that, so further enhancement of problem solving skills of students are necessary to further develop their capabilities in learning mathematics. Okay, that is our recommendation. Then next, our conclusion number 2, student attitude towards mathematics and its factor obtain a high mean, indicating that students are willing to learn mathematics despite their having difficulty with it. So our recommendation, developing the positive attitude of students toward mathematics is one way of making them fan of the subject. So creating a positive and supportive learning environment can further enhance their skills in mathematics. So that is our recommendation 2. Okay, and number 3, gender does not affect the problem solving abilities of students. So that is our conclusion number 3. So we'll answer that our recommendation 4, our recommendation 3. So opportunities for mathematics learning should be open to all by providing equal access to learning without gender preferences. Okay, that is our recommendation. Then let's go to conclusion 4. Students' problem solving abilities and attitude towards mathematics in each grade level are the same. So our recommendation, the learning development of students must be developed in all levels so that there will be no academic gaps. Okay, and 5, students' problem solving abilities does not relate with their attitudes toward mathematics. So this is our recommendation. Developing students' problem solving abilities can help them appreciate mathematics and further enhance their life skills, especially in solving problems. Or you can state here that you can explore other variables to pair with attitudes of students in mathematics. Okay, because in this study you only use problem solving abilities. Okay, so you can explore other variables. Okay, just like in our exercise. Then number 6, this is your so further studies will be encouraged to enhance the results of this study. So our recommendations for further study. Okay, so that is how you will write your recommendations in your research paper. Again, so it will jive to your conclusion. Okay, so and this is a chapter 4 of your study. Okay, so I hope you understand how to make recommendations for your study. If you have questions and clarifications, again, you will just tag me on my Facebook account. Okay, so have a nice day.